You say in your book that acceptance heals. You have to face and feel, release, reframe, rest. So that's the process of healing trauma.
Well, that's one description of it. That's a good one.
It's yours.
Yeah, I mean, there could be more elaborate descriptions of it, but yeah.
I'm thinking of Levine's studies of trauma that the animal, like the polar bear that's darted, it has to shake. It has to do a physical kind of release. So does that play out as well, a physical moving out the stuck pain?
Sometimes. I mean, in general, we humans have lost the ability to, quote, shake off trauma the way wild animals do. They just shudder and are pretty much okay. We don't have that. There's a guy named, it's either Bertoni or Berselli, that's figured out, got a book, can't think of what it's called right now, forgive me, but he has a method where you try to induce this shaking, basically by stressing, putting yourself in a stressful situation and physical, crouching, and so there is. I mean, that is one of the tools that people use for trauma release.
How has this played out in your own relationships? Have you been married, lived happily ever after?
I never wanted to sire children. I was the oldest of five, and I was a parent from age 5 on, and my mom had 5 or 6 miscarriages in the first 11 years of my existence. So I just never wanted to be a parent. One of the things in family constellation works, one of the patterns is if you have to be kind of the emotional spouse of your opposite sex parent, you very often don't do marriage well. It's because in some sense you're still connected to your mom in a way, and those people tend to be more creative and lead wilder, more adventurous lives. They don't necessarily do so well in long-term stable relationships. And it doesn't matter whether you're a girl or a boy. And we're not talking incest, we're talking emotional spouse here, right? Which means that the child is starting to carry some of the load that the actual spouse should be carrying, because the spouse is not there to do it.
Right. When you do emotional freedom technique, do you think it works because of the meridian system and you're tapping on acupressure points, or it's like a form of self-hypnosis, or it's piezoelectric effect, tapping on the bones? Why do you think EFT and, well, EMDR doesn't tap, but it does brain hemisphere?
All of the above. No, I mean that. The meridian system is clearly involved. There are piezoelectric effects on the tapping. There is the placebo effect is finally being taken more seriously. Finally, all right. And there's verbal parts too. There's this profoundly important statement. Even though I blah 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 blah, I deeply love and fully accept myself. That statement is about putting the self back together. Do you understand me? I can love and accept this part of me. And the way I work, we'll not only do that kind of tapping, but we'll put that part in a chair. We'll put that energy in a chair and try to build a relationship with it so that the outer manager person who's trying to live a life and being hampered by these feelings, this stuff that comes up, being triggered, that that person can start to say, oh, that's that part of me. I see you. I'm not flooded by you. I see you. I love you. I care about you. Could you just give me a break here and let me finish this, and then we'll talk? Okay. And that you can get that to work with many people.
Have you tried? Go ahead.
But again, it depends on how willing they are to be open and childlike and experimental, and that can be hard. We're talking about feelings of overwhelm. Trauma is feelings of overwhelm that have kicked in the fight, flight, freeze system, and dismembered parts of literally dismembered parts of the neurology of the brain. And again, read Dan Siegel's Mindsight about that. Super good book.
When you said that you've also used neuro-linguistic programming in your work?
I use some techniques of that. I'm not trained in it, but the techniques of neuro-linguistic programming have kind of just spread in all kinds of different ways.
What's an example of one of them that you use?
Well, anchors. Obviously, you try to, physical anchors are like when you need to remind yourself of a certain kind of feeling. We're going to establish an anchor with it. You go inside into the mental space of someone, and you work with. You have them image their family or the problem or whatever, and you start asking questions like, well, how big is it? How close is it? What does it look like? Can you look at it? Ask it to move away or ask it to move closer. There's a guy named Lucas Dirks, D-E-R-K-S, who I think is called the Social Panorama. He's got a whole system of therapy based on this internal. It's comes right out of NLP. Those kind of things have spread, and that's I learned that kind of stuff in shamanic journeying too. I mean, there's a lot of overlap. There's just different cultural names for these things. Guided mental imagery is very much like shamanic journeying. It just depends on what your cultural context is.
Right. Got it. Excuse me. So, what's your next book? Where are you going next?
I don't know. I am just about 75. I am semi-retired. I would love to write a book on all this whole large area of collective and individual and internal trauma, how it works, because the mainstream traumatologists are just beginning to deal with collective trauma. And the family constellation world is way ahead of them in that regard. And again, I'm trying to build bridges again. So I would like to do that. I would love to write something on the social impact of the conduit metaphor, but
Sorry.
But I don't have a tribe of graduate students to read through all of the stuff that to catch up with, because people have done all kinds of things with these ideas, including say they're all wet, which they're not. Those are the two areas that I would most like to write in. I don't know whether I will or not. I'm a shaman. I have ritual work. I have healing work. I have music to make. I have woodworking and boats to be with, and I don't know how writing the two books that I wrote recently was quite an ordeal writing them, as you probably know. Some of the worst of it being all the damn proofreading and all that stuff, So if I had support, I would sit down. If I had 2 years of support, I'd sit down and write one of these books, no question. But I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm a deeply spiritual person. I have healing work to do that's important, and I have ritual work to do that's important. And at this stage of my life, I'm not sure what's going to take precedence. I'm at a point now where I'm starting to think about that.
Have we left anything out that you would like readers to know about family constellations or dealing with trauma? Or
you got much deeper into that than I thought we would get. So I think we did very well on that. No, I think we're pretty complete here.
Okay.